Morning, everyone. And thanks to Chanchal and Wilfred for inviting me here. And of course, a warm welcome to all of you. Now, what started, my interest in this paper was it's been 2 years, but this particular paper, thanks to Chanchal and his invitation, is something, a new additional to it. Now, on the 1st of December 2020, the American Academy of Arts and Sciences released a joint statement along with British Academy, American Arts and Australian Academy of Humanities, Academy of Social Sciences Australia, and the Royal Society of Canada. Now, this particular joint statement was very interesting because what actually they were impressing upon was multilingualism. And all these countries, who talk about are these Anglophonic countries, who are now suddenly, a joint statement at a world stage talking about multilingualism. So that was what emanated my interest. And I started working, on multilingualism and multilingual communication. I did find out, I'm sorry the PowerPoint is not working, but that's my fault because, there was an issue with the Wi-Fi. When I compared data, so I took data from 3 sources, the WHO data, the Linguistic Diversity data, and the UN Atlas on Endangered Languages data. So on, comparing these, the top 10 countries with the maximum, linguistic diversity, United States of America comes in, in the 2nd position, India is in the 1st position, Brazil is in the 3rd position on linguistic diversity. When you compare it with, the number of endangered languages, again there was an overlap between the 3. And when I compared it with the caseload of COVID, this was I started from March 2020. And till 2022, the caseload of COVID per million, if you compare it, that was the highest in United States, then Brazil and India, and of course they were competing each other. So in between, it was Brazil ahead, and maybe India ahead, and US not. So the 3 were again competing in terms of death and caseload. So what interested me was that apart from that, multilingualism, which I have already, I've already worked on that paper and published it. So today I'm just going to, talk about the second thing, and that is crisis communication, or communication in a federal setup. And one would expect that in a federal setup, communication is very, very critical during a crisis situation, just like COVID-19. So the paper is actually COVID-19 challenges, federalism or lack thereof. And I will be talking on 4 major issues. One, contradictory and under-communication between different levels of government and to the public. High level of polarization and prioritization of political and electoral opportunities over public health. Third, coordination failure between different levels of government, bureaucracy, task force, and such kind of, having multiple, just adding to more and more committees and institutions rather than that already those were existing. I think, that would have cleared the confusion. So, adding more layers actually was more confusing when one needed to take decisions very quickly. So these could have been avoided, and there was chaotic planning and incoherent objectives. So I'll now start speaking on these 3 countries and on these 4 aspects. And before I just start, I would just like to say also that United Nations did talk about and in fact a new term came up, infodemic, along with pandemic, because there was fake news, misinformation, and underinformation. Now, regarding the confusing or the contradictory communication, which was between the different levels of government in India, the very first thing which one could see is that in the very initial stages there was an under-communication, in the sense that, of course, the lockdown came, and the lockdown was only in after mid of March 2020. And before that, certain state governments were already talking about that, we need to have a lockdown and let's have a pandemic. But rather than having a joint meeting with the chief ministers of the different states and, maybe deciding upon, how to go about the lockdown, a very sudden lockdown was announced by the central government, and and they were just given 4 hours. So all kind of intermigration, migrant laborers, migrant workers moving from one state to another, a very short duration of time. 4 hours is not a very great time, for millions of people to be moving. This was also a time when it was very, very the government, the central as well as some states, communicated insufficient information regarding the disease control, and that actually led to stigma of fear, poor health-seeking behavior, and increasing vulnerability. For example, although it was said that you need to maintain social distancing, and it was all over the newspapers in English and Hindi majorly, and not in all the languages of India. What has happened is social distancing actually for me sounds very surprising in a country like India. Means what kind of social distancing? How do you maintain social distancing? I think it's a very foreign concept. What could have been mentioned was, I think it was conceptually just put up that you suddenly have this maintain social distancing. Everywhere it keeps on coming, maintain social distancing. How are you going to maintain it? There are so many people. People don't even know or respect privacy, and space is such a constraint. How are you going to maintain social distancing in that situation? Also, there was India, in fact, under the, as it went on 29th March, the Home Secretary referred to, the movement of the large number of migrants in different parts of country as a violation of lockdown measure. And he, of course, talked about social distancing, and he said that in case of violation of these directions, the state and union territories should take necessary action. Now, this order made it explicitly clear that district magistrates and superintendents of police in the district, will be personally liable for the implementation of directions and lockdown measures under the order of 29th March. Now, that actually led to a very chaotic situation, because here you're talking about a very, stringent lockdown. Now there are workers and migrant workers who are moving. You did not actually take to cognizance of having or at least communicating it clearly to different chief ministers, and and it's not just chief ministers, the bureaucracy. You set up a central task force, so there is a lot of gaps between communication and coordination. So you are just setting and adding to those institutional mechanisms, and in that kind of a thing, what happened was people really suffered in the very first, in the first phase, as they call, of the COVID-19. But because, because we did have a very, very stringent nationwide lockdown, what happened, by the time it was August 2020, when it was going up, and then slowly by December it has come down, India actually celebrated the success, and it was lauded internationally that, India's case has been very, very successful, and which all, give and take, it was, because the kind of country which we have with so much of population and people, it was a case of success. But what happened was that because of the celebratory mood, there was a laxity in listening to the warnings of the second wave. The government of India announced elections in 5 states with 186 million voters. And it was also discussed when when the state government, in fact the chief minister of Uttarakhand, objected to the central government opening up the state for the Kumbh Mela, which is a very big Hindu festival. There were issues, and finally the chief minister resigned, and the Kumbh Mela was undertaken. So what happened during this time, because of the spell of the success and international recognition of the first spell of COVID, we had a very bad second phase of COVID, which was very disastrous. So not only, if you see India in that sense, we could have done far better, we could have saved many lives. And because of this kind of a lack of communication, of clarity, state governments not being, taken into, confidence at times, and whenever they were, even then, there were, for the public, there were very contradictory kind of things coming up, because initially it was said that, okay, let's have this kind of a celebration that, we celebrate because we have successfully, killed the virus, right? So we are very successful, in the entire world in maintaining, what US and other countries have not been able to do. And it's a Chinese virus, by the way. Now, what happened in US is that, in fact, US, one would have expected where, federalism has much strong roots, right? But again, there were infights between city and state, and I think that's what Charles was referring to yesterday. Athens Clarke County in Georgia proposed cutting police funding in half over the next decade, and this was coming in for a very long time because they thought of redirecting the money to social services and health. But the bill did not pass, and this is a county. So it did not pass, and the idea alone was so outrageous to the Georgian legislature that lawmakers decreed that it would not happen in their watch. Again, there was an issue of parties, of course, you have in the county, the Democrats, and in the state, the Republicans. There was also very confused communication. In fact, the US ambassador for global health, HIV/AIDS, had said that the administration has yet to decide on national recovery. So they were also talking about economic recovery during the time when COVID has suddenly erupted. The whole response has been lagging, that is, the response to communicate effectively and, to forget about their party differences and to come out and, solve a public health issue. So the whole response has been lagging the curve of the epidemic, and what ought to be happening, the key accomplishments that could have been specified within a timeline, it sounded like, they were groping that, let the pandemic go on. And that is what was, what was given a kind of, it was actually an assumption that, it will go on. We are just handling it pretty much, I think, it was a very egoistic kind of an understanding that we are handling it pretty well. There were also state presumption laws. So in that sense, many states in US were passing preempting city and county laws and ordinances. What exactly happened was that although the counties was passing, the state would actually come in between, not let it go on. And then there were also conflicting laws between the county, the state, and the federal republic, the federal country. So data compiled in July 2020, 2020 by the Center for Public Health Law Research at Temple University suggested that in between the time when COVID was already happening, there were 46 states, there were all these, the most extensive preemption laws were passed during that time, and there was fight between on the issue of property tax, firearms, tax limits, rent control, paid leave. So, issues which could have been dealt without a legal, mechanism, they were actually going, in for, elongated legal mechanism. The director of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention imposed a nationwide moratorium on eviction of any tenants who lived in the country. Again, that is experiencing substantial or high level of COVID transmission. And in this reference, there was a case now, that they will not obey. So the Alabama Association of Realtors obtained a judgment from the US District Court for the District of Columbia, vacating the moratorium on the ground that it is unlawful. So you see that, there were federal infightings, going on during a time when all the energy, resource, and the time should have been devoted to the public health, the pandemic. So, that is another thing that was happening. And do I have some time?
3 minutes.
Okay, then I'll just go to Brazil. Now, in Brazil, there was a very delayed and inadequate federal response. At one time, in the search for vaccines, and again, I'm coming to that, contradictory communication, contradictory to the anti-China speech which, President Bolsonaro was giving, a kind of a replication of what was happening by Trump or Mr. Modi here, was that, many vaccines were applied in Brazil by the states came from Chinese manufacturers who were in partnership with the Butanan Institute. And the federal government tried to stop such negotiations, claiming that it was an initiative outside the state's attribution, not corroborated by the federal Supreme Court. And this again, just think about it, this, the center or, the federal government talking about anti-China and not, getting, vaccination from China, and it was not even developing any kind of indigenous vaccines. And then, you have states, due to the pressure of the death, started applying, because under the federal law they do have, and then there are infights in the Supreme Court. And the speech with which federal government tried to guide the media and the population sought to create a false dichotomy between saving economy and saving lives, which justified the president's inaction in imposing a lockdown in the country only after deaths surpassed 3,000 cases daily. So I think, apart from this communication issue, there is a question. I'm just ending, so I don't have much time, but yeah. I think the leadership needs to be, one, of course, we have seen the US elections as well as Brazil elections, and, both the leaders who were presidents during the time of the pandemic lost. But there has to be a kind of understanding about the leadership, I think. In India, of course, Mr. Modi is still celebrated, at least that's what an idea which we get through the electoral results. But it was not so in Brazil and in United States of America. So what could have been avoided, given a more clear communication, and not playing politics, or thinking about electoral results, actually emanated into this kind of a disaster, which and so it was not a failure in that sense of federalism, because federalism does talk of decentralization and more intergovernmental communication. So it was more of a lack of that. The spirit of federalism was lacking, and it was more about party politics, in all the three countries, of course, in different intensities. Thank you.